get is, I don't know anything about racing. This is true. You're right. You're in the wrong show.
Yeah.
You're watching the wrong show if you want to hear like super engineer stuff.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Hitting the Apex, joined by Evan. Evan, how's it going, man?
Frustrating, but good. Definitely frustrating, but good.
Yeah, it was a. I don't even know. We're gonna break it down. I've never seen. I mean, as much crap as Ferrari gets for their going to lap 2 and saying, "All right, let's go on to plan F." Like this is.
Yeah.
This is probably worse. I mean, this is unbelievable. But anyway, let's first just review our predictions. I had Lando, Oscar, Max as the top 3. You had Lando, George, Max as the top 3. I had George DNF. You had Sainz DNF. That was all very much not the case.
I had Sainz top 5.
Oh, wait, you had Sainz top 5. That's right. Never mind. And that actually was the case. You nailed it.
I got that one.
Actually, you underestimated our guy Carlos.
Yeah.
And then for the sprint race, we both had Lando winning. He obviously came 3rd. Shout out to Jeff. So, yeah, I mean, the McLaren was the fastest car all weekend, in particular Oscar. I think, yeah, I mean, the sprint race, Max messed up qualifying. He went off and kind of damaged his car a little bit. He fought his way up to 4th. So at that point, the sprint. Here, let me go ahead and share. These are the race results. The sprint results. Here we go. Let me share this. But so this is the. This is your sprint results. So at this point, Oscar has gained a little ground. But Lando has gained ground on Verstappen as well. So at this point, the weekend is pretty much going McLaren's way.
Yeah.
You know, and
Oscar's
clearly
at this point.
Yeah, it was the quicker car so far throughout the weekend. You know, finished 1st and 3rd here, but again, Norris is doing a little bit of management, knowing he just needs to finish, 3rd. That's like his target to win the championship. So they get in, they qualify 1st and 2nd, and then
make a boneheaded move.
I mean, this is how it ends up. Just Piastri put it on pole. Lando again screwed the startup. But I will say this: he cannot. The thing he doesn't want to do again. Oscar at this point. As now, remember, Max and Oscar came in the weekend tied. So Oscar winning the sprint race, Max 4th. He has now opened up a little gap between himself and Max. He races off in the distance. The last thing, at this point, you're looking at Oscar, if you're Lando, like, that's my main competitor.
Yeah.
Right now, because I've gained points on Max this weekend already. And so he's not going to go wheel to wheel with Max or really send it and try to get 2nd when he knows if they crash out, Oscar's basically going to win the championship. So he, slots into 3rd. Everything's going relatively well at that point until Hülkenberg causes a safety car very critically on lap 7. Now, we talked a lot last week about how maximum you were allowed to do is 25 laps. So had it been lap 6, you have to stay out, essentially, because you'd have to do 3. If you pit, you'd have to still do 2 more after that. But it was lap 7. The entire field can apparently do simple subtraction and realize that's 50 laps. That means it's still just 2 stops. That's a free pit stop.
Yeah.
Our friends at McLaren decided they knew better and stayed out. And threw the race away, essentially. Thoughts?
I mean, the only thoughts I really have on it is their reasoning behind it. Sitting there and trying to show, or, have the narrative of it gave us more flexibility throughout the race. Like, there was no flexibility in this race. It was a stringent line that the FIA put out and that Pirelli put out of 25 laps per tire set. You had to do that 25 laps per tire set. So if you have the ability to go in and do one of your two mandated pit stops and still be able to have enough laps left to be able to perform your second one and finish the race, you do it. I mean, I'm sitting there screaming at the screen watching the race saying, why are you guys not pitting? Everybody else is pitted. Either that was going to turn out to be the most genius move of all time, and if they would have ended up finishing 1 and 2 and beating Max, and it would have been, we would have all been sitting here saying that was the greatest decision of all time to make, but it absolutely wasn't.
But there wasn't even a decision to make, though, and I think that's the challenge here. Like, it was so mind-numbingly stupid. I don't know if you saw, they talked to, I forget her name, but the Red Bull strategist, and she was like, they were on the pit wall so confused. They're like, we all had that number in our back pocket. We know anything after lap 7, you pit.
Yeah.
Because it's a free pit stop, and you still have to do your 2 mandatory, so one of them's free. Anything before lap 7, you don't pit, because you'd still have to do 2, so you just have to do 3 pit stops, essentially.
Yeah. And
so when they realized the McLaren, so obviously Piastri was in front, so he keeps going. Like, the McLaren stayed out, and they at that first second, she's like, we paused. I'm like, wait, did we calculate something wrong?
Yeah.
Because it was so obviously, it wasn't one of those, well, could go one way or the other things. It was so obvious you had to pit that it actually confused Red Bull's pit wall, because they're like, wait, we gamed this out. It's 100% pit. There's no ambiguity here.
Yeah.
To the point that, I mean, Mercedes double stacked and ruined Russell's race, because they were like, that was still a better alternative than staying out.
Yeah.
Like, that's how obvious it was. And yet, the papaya army over here just, I don't get it. And, we're going to look at the standings and all that obviously later, but it not only ruins their race, but to your point, like, let's say it was better. It was better. You finished 1-2. You're already in front. And I think one of the things they've struggled with is, like, there is no way they didn't know that it was faster to pit. Like, I don't know what they were thinking.
Yeah.
And I think one of the problems is, like, hey, when you're winning the championship, which they were doing, just do the common strategy. Don't need to screw around. Like, they don't need to. It would have made more sense for Max to stay out and be like, if assuming McLaren was idiotic, and say, you know what, I'm going to roll the dice because Oscar's in front of me, and if Oscar wins this race, which he's going to do because he's faster than me and in front, I am basically out of the championship. So I'm going to take a risk and get track position and hope there's another safety car somewhere so I can get a free pit stop later, but I'm hoping to gap something. And instead, like, it's McLaren doing that, which is like, you don't need to take that risk, just pit. All you had to do was finish in the top 3, and they somehow managed to screw that up. I don't even understand. And I mean, we're going to look at the standings again later, but this ruined Oscar's championship. That's why he was more dejected, obviously, even though Lando finished 4th. Lando is still winning the championship right now. Oscar is basically screwed. We're going to look at the scenarios later, but and he's screwed because of this, because he would have been ahead of Max, and the only Max would have basically been out, and yeah, I don't understand what they're thinking. Like, this was not a close call. I understand sometimes, there's a close call. Do we pit a second time? The computer says to pit twice. Do we want to give up track position? This was not even a question. These are mandatory pit stops because of the tire rules. Like, you had to pit twice, period. Why would you not take a free pit stop? There was no option of let's run long and make it a one-stop or something. You're not allowed to do that.
I mean, the only thing I can
Ridiculous.
think is, some they were mentioning, some of the pundits were saying, Maybe they could have. They were worried about double stacking, like what happened with the Mercedes. Because they were so close. They were 1 and 3 at the time. Maybe it was an issue of them thinking, well, let's leave Piastri out and bring Norris in. But then, if Norris ends up winning the race because of it, let's say, then it's the whole controversy, or vice versa. Oh, we're gonna bring Piastri in, but leave Norris out to try to gain track position on Verstappen. But then, what happens if you know that doesn't play out well, or again, if that plays out in the favor of not pitting being the right decision, then it's, oh, we're favoring Norris, in that sense as well. So I think that they wanted to keep them on the same strategy, and double stacking was probably a concern. But again, we all saw, in hindsight, we all saw now that it was the absolute wrong decision to do. And shout out to Red Bull for making the right decision,
But it
and
wasn't just Red
getting him
Bull.
in
I think
early.
that
It was
that's
everybody,
the
yeah.
that's the frustrating thing here. This was not a close decision.
Yeah.
That's what it literally almost freaked the Red Bull pit wall out into leaving Max out. It's like, wait, what do you mean they didn't pit? Did we screw the whole race up? What does McLaren know that we don't know here?
Yeah.
And then the nope, they should have pitted. And yeah, I mean, I think this is probably part of it, right? They didn't want to give, one driver an advantage over the other. And I don't know what the papaya rules mean anymore. I tell you what's got to mean this week, but
Yeah.
well, he's still in position here, but he honestly could have, a McLaren could have clinched the drivers' champion. It wouldn't have been Lando necessarily, but the way Oscar, I criticized Oscar last week because I said one of the reasons I didn't think Lando would be able to run him down is I thought at some point we would see a competitive response where he's just faster than Lando that weekend. And really, since the Netherlands, where Lando also blew up and he had that big lead, Lando's been faster pretty much every session, every qualifying, every race, every sprint, and I'm like, and that's why I called Oscar my disappointment. I'm like, I expected you to fight back on this and not just get run down. And this week he did.
Yeah.
He took the pole for both sprint and the race. He won the sprint race. He's leading the race, and they screwed him. And yeah, I mean, and if they hadn't screwed him, this would be a 2-horse race right now between both of their drivers. And then you can do this stupid papaya rules crap and say, even if it's an optimal pit strategy, we're not doing it because who cares? One of us is going to win. You guys just figure it out. But now they got a mess on their hands. Mind-numbingly stupid to the point that, I mean, look, after I think they pretty much immediately knew they'd screwed the whole race up. So they're kind of like, yeah, let's try this. And there was no way you're making up 20. Like, I don't understand what. And this is why it's so stupid, right? There's no way you're making up 26 or 22 or whatever the pick window is seconds up on
Verstappen with clear air.
Well, not just that, because you get, like, I don't know, they're gonna run long on the mediums and then run long again, and then I allegedly put softs on, and they'll be so, like, there's no freaking way. I mean, Oscar did great to make up 7 to get it within 8. He made up 15 seconds or whatever, 14 seconds, which was, Lando basically didn't make anything out. He's a full pit stop behind Max, and that's because that strategy didn't work. I mean, it doesn't make sense doing tires in a different order, because they were still going to go basically 25 laps, and then they ended up having to pit early because those tires went off faster than they thought. But they're basically Red Bull going, and the rest of the field, frankly, going 7 laps, then 25, then 25. It's not really that big a difference than you going 25, then 25, and then 7. Like, that's not going to make up a whole pit stop.
No.
It was that stupid. They must have gotten the math wrong and thought they couldn't pit yet. Like, they thought it wasn't enough laps.
The other problem is even if you come in with 7 laps left, and let's say you're within a 15 or 20-second mark of where Verstappen is, 7 laps isn't enough time, even on the soft tires, to get them up to temperature, and still track down that 15 or 20 seconds, whatever it would be. It just isn't enough time. That's why you do it early. I think we were talking about that last week when we were discussing, the strategies at the end of our show last week. Was, do you go 25-25-7? Do you go, 25-7-25? Do you, like, how do you play that out? Because of the fact that it was such a challenging decision to make. But then the decision was made for you, just like you said. It was a clear and obvious decision. Once that accident happened, they needed to pit. Everybody else except them did, and they got screwed because of it. They screwed themselves because of it, I should say. So, from that point on, it's trying to damage or trying to limit as much damage as you can. Try to get past as many people as you can, and then put yourself in a position at the end of the race to where at least you're going to maximize the points that you have, which I thought that they did an okay job of, and until the very end when Lando kind of got himself a little bit of a break. But we'll talk about that afterwards because there's some big things to discuss about that situation as well at the very
Yeah,
end
well,
of the
let's
last lap.
get to it. So like you said, they did their last pit stop. Piastri slotted back in second, was chasing Max down, but not nearly quick enough. The assumption was Lando would be able to chase down Antonelli and then Sainz. He caught up to Antonelli quickly, but could not overtake. Didn't have the straight line speed. In fact, they were commenting it visibly looked like even when DRS he was slower in the straights, which I don't even know what that was. So he basically closed up in the middle of the lap and then not be able to overtake, and then Antonelli made a mistake on the next to last lap, I believe. And Lando, was it the last lap? It was near one of the last few laps. It might have been the last lap. And did Lando really open up 5 seconds on him the rest of the lap?
Yeah, I think it was that much because he what's it called? He slid out pretty wide in that turn.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
Lost all his momentum, and Lando basically had or gained like that 3 to 5 seconds within that turn.
Yeah, okay, that would make sense. And so that is a 2 extra points that Lando got, which is huge in the scenarios. But what were your thoughts there? I know, of course, it's F1, so it's conspiracy theories. There are Mercedes engine on a, you know what Mercedes thinks about Red Bull too, so and especially Max.
I mean, there is the conspiracy theorists out there. Chief in that is Helmut Marko coming out and saying afterwards, that basically Antonelli gave him that position. If you watch the replay, you can see what happened as soon as, and that's what ended up happening with Red Bull is they ended up watching, the replay of what happened in that situation, and they actually put out a statement because there's been over, I think it was 1,000 death threats that were sent to Kimi Antonelli from people who claim to be Red Bull fans that were saying that he just gave that position to Lando Norris. So Red Bull legitimately had to come out and put out a statement saying that, after looking at the data, we apologize for the comment, Helmut Marko made and all that stuff because, it, these drivers are racing drivers. They don't want to give up position. They're not, especially if it's team to team. If it's the same team and they make a team order to let somebody pass, they're going to do it. I don't care if McLaren uses a Mercedes engine. I don't care, if it's Red Bull to RB. They're still on separate teams. The Mercedes is still in, a fight for a constructor's position. They're not going to just give up that position for nothing. And essentially, that's what Helmut Marko and I guess who was it? GP or not GP? GP is Antonelli's.
No, GP is Max's.
Oh, he's Max. Yeah, so he also said it on the radio as well. Basically saying, "Oh, Antonelli looks like he just moved over and let Lando through on the radio in the last lap." So hearing that these guys are saying these things, it's kind of concerning. It's kind of you don't ever want to think that there's conspiracy theorists out there, but we all know that there is in the fan base. But the fact that top level guys at Red Bull are saying these things, it's like, come on, man, like this is still racing. You guys know this. Like they can't be putting that into the ether, and then for the Red Bull fans to come out and do what they did to essentially. I mean, yes, we all know he's a Formula One driver. He's a hell of a Formula One driver, but he's still a kid. Like these guys are sending death threats to a kid. Like, come on, man, do better than that. Be better. Let's be better than that as a Formula One fan base. Let's not do stuff like that just because of the fact that you know something happened and your team made the wrong comments. But what do you think about that whole situation?
Yeah, no, I mean, he, I mean, you could see the thing is, if Antonelli did that on purpose, he is the greatest driver in Formula One history. To like screw up 2 corners before and have it carry, because again, like obviously you take us to the track every week, and we know how technical that part of the track is. If you make a mistake and it carries over, like you can get through that corner, but now you're out of position for the next one. That's what happened to him. So if he was able to do that on purpose, man, he is. I mean, how's he not winning every race? Because you've got that kind of car control. Wow. I mean, no, of course it wasn't on purpose. They would have done it 5 laps ago.
Yeah.
Why did he?
Yeah, because
Why
then
did he
that would've
block
gotten
him
us
and
that
hold
would've
him
gotten
up
us
for the
closer
entire?
to.
Yeah, I mean, if he didn't block him and hold him up, next he might have gotten up to third, because I don't know that Sainz would have been able to defend him nearly as well as Antonelli was able to, because the Mercedes is a quicker car than the Williams. So I mean, if they were going to let if they were really doing that on purpose, then they would have. No one would have even questioned if once Norris got DRS, if he just passed him on the straight. And I'm like, that makes sense. The idea that he blocked him, held him up for, what is it, 6 laps or whatever, and then somehow strategically pulled that off. I mean, come on.
Strategically drifted the car into the side.
Yeah, strategically made a slight mistake in one turn that caught him out of position in the next turn, that then caused him to drift wide in the following turn and to open up enough of a gap. I mean, come on. No one has that kind of car control.
Exactly.
It's absurd, but that's kind of what it is, right? It is the drive to survivization or whatever of this sport, where everything's
a controversy. Everything's
but also, it's one of those things where when you accuse someone of something, it's because you do it. Like, watch the Racing Bulls this week.
Yeah.
They are going to try and block the McLaren. It's like, I mean, because Red Bull actually does the things they accuse the other teams of doing. Like, they 100% use the Racing Bulls to the senior team's advantage, which they shouldn't even have. But anyway,
I just want to know, why is Helmut Marko on a Sky Sports, a Sky Sports affiliate? I guess it was, but because it was like an Austrian Sky Sports affiliate that he made the comment to. I understand he's Austrian. I understand he's a big figure in Formula One, but why is he representing the team on these interviews and stuff like that? He always makes these mistakes now. At some point at the big wigs at Red Bull, and I know he's a part of those big wigs at Red Bull, but you gotta just tell this guy to shut the heck up. Do what your job is, which is to find drivers to go and pair with the greatest driver that you guys have ever had on that team, Max Verstappen, and allow your team to keep on winning because you're finding these good drivers. He was a hell of a driver back when he drove back in the day, but I mean, I just feel like every single time he opens up his mouth at this point, he's causing another controversy. He's saying another gaffe. He's almost like the Yogi Berra of Formula One at this point, because there's always some type of thing that he says that just makes no sense whatsoever and just causes more and more controversies.
yeah, I mean, because he's a shit talker. I mean, honestly, and again, doing something like that, like what they're accusing Mercedes of, for some reason colluding with McLaren on because they share an engine. Like, I don't even know what the conspiracy is there. Is exactly the type of thing Red Bull would do.
Yeah,
100%. If Max was in Lando's position in the championship, and the fourth place car right there was a Racing Bull.
Yeah, it was Lawson.
They would move it. They would be like, yeah, you're gonna slow down on the straight and have a mechanical thing or something, and all I mean it's exactly the type of stuff they would do. Again, watch the Racing Bulls this week. They're gonna try and get involved. Like that's what I mean. Red Bull's a team that does that type of thing.
Now they get Yuki to do it so that even if Yuki gets a penalty and a suspension or
Well,
something.
I mean, look. So there are. I think it would be putting a lot of faith in the FIA, but they have. I mean, the reason you don't see this happen more is because they have disqualified in the past teams from the championship. Like Michael Schumacher got thrown out of a championship once. Like they wiped his whole season out. Like they have done that. So that does keep people in line. Like if you crash on purpose, they will just throw you out of the. At least they have in the past. Would they do it to Red Bull? I don't know. They seem to be the darlings. But well, right when boy, look who showed up to our Red Bull hate fest. Sorry about that, Carly. Anyway, but I mean, there is precedent there because otherwise, I mean, the move from McLaren's pretty simple. Hey, Piastri, you're going to run into Max.
Yeah.
And this thing is done, right? But obviously, they would get thrown out of the championship for doing that.
Yeah, no.
Now, if well, I mean, we're going to look at the championship scenarios in a bit. So that was the race. I mean, I don't think we even need to talk about the disappointment. We spent the whole first 27 minutes of the show talking about that. Who was your driver of the day, though?
I mean, I'm gonna go with Sainz. Like keeping it in the top three. Getting up there. Running with the big boys. I talked about it as my surprise that he was going to be a top five, and the fact that he kept it up there in the top three, was pretty impressive. That's why I'm going to go with that. I mean, it was such a weird race because of the way that the strategies were the way that everything played out, and the focus of it was so much on the McLarens, like we talked about, and Max, and the whole championship and everything. Max had a great race himself, but I'm gonna go with Carlos just because.
I mean, Max did okay. He overtook Lando. But
Yeah.
the McLaren tossed that race away. Even
Yeah.
Red Bull's like, I cannot believe they did that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go Carlos. How about you?
Yeah, I'll go with a now permanent driver on Racing Bulls, Liam Lawson. I think getting that in the points probably. I don't know what they were kind of. Actually, you can't actually see it on screen if I do a little scrolling. I think that probably helped them when you have a racing, because they finalized it. We'll talk about this a little bit, spent 30 seconds on, but they finalized their drivers lineup, and it was what we kind of anticipated with Qatar moving up to the big team. But Sonoda is now the reserve and test driver for next year, and they don't really test anymore. So that test driver used to be. A big important position. In fact, being a test driver on a big team was frankly better than being a main driver on a small team back in the day because you could get more laps in, you could showcase what you could do, and potentially get a better. Now they don't really test, so it's not much of a position. That's where they dumped Yuki, and I do wonder if this. Again, we've seen this repeatedly, but the Racing Bulls and Yuki have been very close. A lot this year, and I think if they were, I don't know if they were, but if there was some kind of we're trying to figure out who we want to put in that Racing Bull, I think that's probably did it for next year. So Liam Lawson, obviously started way back when because these seasons are so long now. Started in the Red Bull this year, so good recovery season for him to still be in Formula One, still be with the team.
Yeah.
Because normally when these, there are guys that have been punted. Gasly is still here. Like it's not a death sentence to get punted out of that team, but normally when that happens, they don't stay with the program. The fact that they're keeping him a Racing Bull is he's done well this year after getting out of that, after getting demoted. So he kept his head up, and I think beating the big brother cars certainly can't hurt.
No, for sure, and I agree with you there. I think Lawson did a good job this weekend, keeping in the top 10, ahead of Yuki, and he has kind of had a nice little recovery as of late for of the season. You know, showing himself to be a little more quality than we all saw in the beginning of the year. We all know that actual Red Bull car is flawed. Max Verstappen is just himself and can do amazing things in the car. It's going to be interesting, to transition, as we transition into the news of the day portion, if with the Red Bull seats and everything. It's going to be interesting to see how Lawson does against Arvid Lindblad next year, in that other that other Racing Bull seat. Arvid Lindblad is kind of the guy that I think Red Bull is kind of pinning to be the next Max Verstappen, the next leader of the Red Bull team once Max decides that he's going to hang it up or move on to something else, which we'll see how long that's going to be. He keeps on talking about liking and wanting to do other things. So it is good that he did so well this weekend, like you said with Lawson, because I agree. I think that is going to help him with some momentum going into next year with the new teammate. Being the de facto leader of that team. And Hajar. I know he didn't have the greatest weekend this week, but I mean, shout out to him for having such a good season overall to be up there and be with Red Bull for next year. We all saw how his season started. Spinning out on the out lap
Formation lap, yeah.
of formation lap of the first race, but then he came back and has now shown that he does deserve that second Red Bull seat. If not more than any of these other guys had, and we'll see how it plays out. We'll see if he can at least help Max a little bit more than the other guys have this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious. That seat has not been kind to anyone. So, the one who held it the longest without completely, imploding until the end was Checo. He actually did a reasonable number 2 driver job for a while, and then obviously last year the bottom fell out, and I don't know. We'll see how Checo goes. I do think he has a bright future regardless, because again, this is one team. It's happened so many times now. It's not normally, if you get up to a big team, you burn out. You're kind of out of the sport. That seat churns so much that it's not like that at all. So yeah, we'll see how that plays out next year. I think it's the sprint race standings, and then here we go.
Think about it.
Go ahead.
There's 3 number 1 drivers for 3 separate teams that were all number 2 drivers for Red Bull. It couldn't keep it up there or keep going as the number 2 driver for Red Bull. I mean, right? Because technically, Sainz and Albon were both Red Bull drivers. Albon was in that second Red Bull seat. Sainz never got up to that Red Bull seat, but Albon was, and you can technically say he's the number 1 driver at Williams because, A, he's ahead in the points, and B, he's been with Williams longer. You have Gasly, who's the number 1 driver for what's it called, Alpine, and then Liam Lawson. Those 3 are number 1 drivers, and so that shows you the difficulty of that second seat. That you have 3 number 1 drivers for other teams that just couldn't make it as the second driver for Red Bull.
Yeah, no, so I guess in that way it's an opportunity, but it's not been a good seat for people. All right, the driver standings. Lando is still up by 12 points. He is, despite the throwing away of should have closed out this week. He's still in control of this thing. We'll look at the scenarios before we do predictions, but Oscar, that decision, as much as it did, prevent Lando from closing this out and opened up where he does have to, performed somewhat this week. It all but eliminated Oscar from the championship with the way that played out, because 7-point swing for him to Max did it. Because he would be at 399, Max would be at 389, and it would really be Lando's got slight edge, but not much of one. And instead, it is we'll look at the scenarios later, but that hurt. And then the constructors, so obviously, as we've known, McLaren won this a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I think, one of the things to highlight is Ferrari's just imploded down the stretch here. They were ahead of Mercedes with, I think, 4 races to go or 5 races to go, and it's just been completely one-sided. It's like Mercedes will almost certainly finish, in second. Red Bull's almost certainly going to finish in third, the way that Ferrari is performing now. And yeah, there's not really much else to decide here. This is kind of all locked in, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it's far enough apart, I think, with everybody that, unless we see a big showing by Hulkenberg and Bortoletto in the last, race, maybe they get like a top 6 or something like that, or one of those two gets up there.
It's hard to make up, but if you get 6th, how many points do you get for 6th? You get 8. It's very hard to.
They're only 5 behind.
Yeah, I guess it's technically possible. It's so hard to make up ground down at the bottom of the table, because even getting the points, you're talking about 2 or 3 points. Usually not. Yeah, they're gonna need to do some stuff to make that up. I'm not picturing. I can scroll, but it's our friends at Alpine way in the back. All right. So obviously the last race is always Abu Dhabi. Let me get the stop this, and we will have Evan take us through the track when I get the file, which is here.
Cool evening lights of Yas Marina. The car sprints down the start-finish straight toward turn 1, a rising left-hander that rewards early commitment and smooth rotation. A brief straight leads into the fast, flowing sweep of turns 2 and 3, taken flat as the driver positions the car for the long, cambered turn 5 hairpin. Now a single, wide radius corner designed for side-by-side racing. The exit is crucial, feeding directly onto the circuit's longest straight. Maximum speed is reached before heavy braking for turn 6, a tight hairpin and one of the clearest overtaking zones. Power comes on early for the second long straight, ending at turn 9, a fast reshaped left-hand corner that demands stability under load and sets the tone for the technical Marina sector. From here, the track tightens through the hotel complex. Turns 12 through 15 form a flowing sequence of medium-speed bends, where rhythm and precision are vital. Finally, the driver guides the car through the controlled, deliberate sweep of turn 16, unwinding the steering as the start-finish straight emerges once more, completing a lap of the modern Yas Marina circuit.
Yep, so there it is. You can see Lando at the fastest lap, and won last year as well. Every time I see that circuit, and I see that complex by the bridge, and I think about Latifi doing God knows what he was trying to do and wrecking, and ending Max Championship. Well, setting up a chain of events that that caused the FIA to completely screw up their rules in hand Max Championship. Anyway, here's the circuit. Evan, you want to take us through that a little bit more detail?
Sure. So I'm going to start out by saying, that's something I think we'll all remember is that situation that happened, 20 or 21, was it?
It was 21, yeah.
21. What I think of whenever I see the circuit now, whenever I see the layout of it, is something more recent. I think of the Formula One movie that just came out. I think that they did a great job on this track, specifically, showing that final race, and really kind of the intensity that this circuit can bring to a Formula One weekend, and especially that weekend that you were talking about in 2021. Again, the movie situation and how that all played out, for the whatever, you guys know what I'm trying to say.
Dramatization.
There you go. Thank you. Of using this track, being that it's the final circuit, the final race of the year, and just how well this track plays out for situations like that. It's a fantastic circuit. There's a lot of different parts of it that contribute to it being such a good circuit overall. Going to that turn one, that long straight between 16 and 1, the start finish line straight, dead straight. Going down narrow, you have all the crowd so close to the track there. There's noise, there's vibrancy, it's going to be hot. They're going to just be, at the start of the race, they're going to be sitting there, the noise of all the cars going to that turn one, and then into the first section of this track is that 2, 3, 4 section. I mean, these cars go from basically a dead stop 90-degree turn at turn one to a very fast flowing 2, 3, and 4. To then again a dead stop at turn 5. I mean, that turn 5 section from 4 to 5, these cars are flying. Coming out of the strong G forces of those really quick turns, and then stopping basically a dead stop and turning left to go down that main straight. And then you got one of the longest straights at one of these circuits in the Middle East, between 5 and 6, to then go into another really heartbreaking zone and into a little technical section with turns 6 and 7. It's almost a chicane. It's kind of not, because the way that it's set up, because it's a hairpin and then a turn, but it's almost like a chicane. These cars are going to drop down all the way to first gear and to try to get through there, but then to go to another long section, another long straight. That isn't so much a straight because it's kind of curved a little bit, but then you're going into another big, left-hander at turn 9, really long, angled, a little bit cambered, a little bit more open, and then it goes into the most iconic area of the entire track. You're going into the hotel section with part of the hotel going over the track. It's very iconic to see. Very tight walls right there, close. It's almost like a street circuit with how close everything is to you. To then go right back out into a really fast section at 15 and 16, which they pretty much take as one big turn because of the way that it works out. You're going really against one wall between 14 and 15 to then go out wide and swing the car all the way around. To then go into 16 and come out for that last that last turn to head back onto the start finish line. The mix of speed, technicality, raw power or necessity when it comes to the long straights of this track has. It's got everything. It's one of the best designed tracks, I think, in Formula One. We talk about a lot of these street circuits that we all love, that they basically have to cut out of streets that are already there. This is obviously a designed track that somebody built and made, and it's just a fantastic circuit with, like I said, 3 completely different sections, all flanked by high power, low speed, tight, twisty corners, and then high speed, long flowing corners. And that's one of the reasons why I think that they have this track as one of the final, circuits. I mean, obviously money is a big issue with that as well, but in regards to just giving a great race and overall entertaining end to the season, I don't think that there's a much better place that they could have put this race at.
Yeah, and I think just to piggyback on what you said, I think one of the other things and we're going to talk, tires. They did pick the 3 softest, C3 to C5, but I think one of the things that happens here is this is a straightforward race. It's a straight shot as a one-stopper. There's not really any, and I do think for a title decider, you do kind of want it to be the race. I mean, it's great when they got the strategy right and they get an overtake. And I think for for the last race, you kind of want the car and the driver to do the talking and not necessarily a strategy call or, ooh, they should have gone 2 stops instead of 1 or whatever. This is a straight shot 1 stopper, and it's kind of obvious you go, you don't really use the softs during the race. It's mediums and hards. Generally mediums first, then hards second. I don't think it's going to change this year. So for the last race, that is kind of what you do. Doesn't really rain there. You want it to be straightforward. You don't want to fluke, after starting the season in March, you don't want to fluke the following December to decide the title if it comes down to the last race. So having like you said, a good circuit, one with some overtaking opportunities, which weren't there when Vitaly Petrov held up Fernando Alonso and handed Vettel his first championship. But they are there now, especially with the DRS. This is why DRS exists, actually. And having good overtaking opportunities, some technical sections where Latifi can ruin a championship, and then but having it straightforward, I think is kind of I think that is part of why they like to finish on this track, because it does give them that opportunity to kind of allow the drivers to do the talking here. But again, C3, C4, C5 should be a pretty straightforward one-stopper in terms of timing. We are a little bit earlier, 4:30 a.m. on Friday for practice 1, 8 a.m. Friday practice 2, practice 3, 5:30 a.m. on Saturday, qualifying 9 a.m. on Saturday, in the race 8 a.m. on Sunday. So that is Abu Dhabi. I did mention the weather just to to give you guys a window into this. It is in the 80s, and it says sunny. It'll be at night, so the sun won't be out. But the important sessions are at night. There are some during the day, but in your 70s and low 80s, not really going to rain. So it should be a pretty straightforward race. So we normally do the what drivers what are you looking for? But I think I'm going to be presumptuous here and assume we're looking at Norris, Verstappen, and Piastri. Evan, is that who you're looking at this week potentially?
That is who I'm looking at potentially, but to circle back to what when I was talking about the track, one thing that we know about when they made that movie was Lewis Hamilton was still in the Mercedes. And to watch that movie and see him in that black Mercedes and with that purple helmet on, to know that he went to Ferrari this year and how bad that they've looked, and to see how he has been in red, hasn't gotten a podium yet, hasn't gotten anything, except for that one, sparkle of hope in the sprint race. I want to see how he finishes this season. I legitimately think if they finish this season and it's something again disappointing this weekend like it was last weekend, I don't see Hamilton coming back next year. And this could be that last bit of hope for him to say, I got a podium at my final, or at here. Let's go another year. Let's do it again next year. Let's see what else we can do next year. I think if he ends this year even 10th or less, or even maybe 5th or less, or something he just has a bad weekend overall, I don't see him coming back next year, and that's what I'm looking for. On top of the fact that we want to see how the championship finishes out. If Lando Norris can finally step up, I mean, he dominated this race last year. What's going to happen with Oscar Piastri? They're going to use him, in more strategy role to try to slow down Max, or at least play games. I guess you can say that how they're going to use him in this scenario. All those things is what we're looking for. But again, how Lewis Hamilton finishes this season in this final race, I think is going to be a big determining factor of how we see Formula One in 2026.
I don't think Lewis is retiring after this year, so that's not really what I'm watching. That car is dead. Leclerc can't even drive it anymore. I have no idea what they did to it, but that team is a disaster right now. So Ferrari, I don't think there's any way he's going to retire with a new generation of car coming out and potentially having it be a lot better than what he's currently driving. That car is a piece of crap. Like I think we talked earlier in the year about who will continue to develop and who will stop developing. I'm only going to imagine that Ferrari kind of stopped and started working towards next year's car because they dropped off a cliff.
Yeah.
And Mercedes did not. And I think maybe Mercedes is pushing a little bit more to get higher this year. And at least, again, no evidence of any of this, but my opinion, like there's no, because Hamilton has not been good this year. It's, Ferrari, like, I mean, this is, Nico's had more podiums. I mean, Sainz went to Williams and has more podiums. But Leclerc not having pace is, to me, it's not the car is in there. And, I think Hamilton will at least see one more year out and see if maybe the new car has more pace in it. Because, I think one more year with hopefully a better car is his plan, because he doesn't want to go out like this. Yeah. And so if he can get one, I think at this point he probably knows he's never getting the championship that they stole from him back. Like that Ferrari's not winning the championship next year, and frankly, Leclerc is quicker than him at this point. So even if it was the championship winning car, it's probably not going to be him. I think he's probably come to terms with that, but getting podiums, maybe winning another race or two or something, I think is potentially feasible next year if they've developed the car well. And I think he'd rather go out with that than with whatever the hell it is he's doing right now. This is not good. And so that's why I can't imagine he steps away this year. Now after next season, I think it's a different story. But we'll see. All right. So, let's look at the before we do predictions, let's take a look at the championship scenarios. So, our guy Lando is still in control in the great tradition of Lewis Hamilton trying to capture that driver's championship for McLaren. So, here's the situation. So, anything in the top three, he wins automatically. Doesn't matter what anyone else does. If he's fourth or fifth, and Max doesn't win, he wins. If he starts getting down to sixth and seventh, then he needs someone else to win. Like if Russell wins, for example, he just needs to finish seventh, and so on. So like he's really in control here. In terms of like situations, again, he just has to finish top three. So really, out of the three lead drivers, he just needs to finish last and not, do what he did this week and finish behind the signs or something. I will say this week's result from Qatar would make Max the champion if it's 1-2-4 again. Although we'll get into that in a minute because let's look at the other scenarios. And this is where I'm saying Oscar's the one that really, as much as that hurt Lando, it killed Oscar because so Max's situations, if he finishes first, Lando needs to finish fourth or lower. If he finishes second, Lando needs to finish eighth or lower, and then that does bring Piastri into play. If Piastri finishes in the top two, he still loses. If Max finishes third, Lando needs to finish at ninth. And again, that Piastri comes into play there. And then if Max does not finish on the podium, he is eliminated. Now for Oscar, and this is why I'm saying he's the one who really, really got screwed. So if he wins and Lando finishes sixth or lower, he is close enough to Max where if he wins the race, he will finish out of Max for sure.
Yeah.
So he's got that going for him. So if he wins, but then Lando still has to finish sixth or lower, which is hard. And then if Piastri doesn't win, Lando needs to finish out 10th or lower, and Max has to finish off the podium. So it's a long shot. So I guess, earlier Morgan was talking about papaya rules. The papaya rules this week got to be Oscar, get the fuck out of the way. Honestly,
Yeah.
I think if Oscar's winning the race, that's okay. Let him control up front. But if he drops back, if Max is in front and Oscar is in between Lando and Max, Oscar needs to move.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's any two ways about that. He cannot finish second. You don't risk anything. You don't want to risk a penalty. If he is second and even Lando's third, he's got to move out of the way anyway.
Yeah.
You got to build that buffer in there. Because again, he has to win the race and Lando has to finish sixth or lower for him to win the championship. And if he's in second, which again, if Max is in front and he's in second, then he's dead essentially. So you got to move him. Unfortunately, that's not fair for Oscar, but you can't have these two. They have to favor, everything has to favor Lando this week. They got to talk to Oscar before the race. They have a clear understanding. Unless Lando DNFs, you've got to move out of the way. We're not doing that. So I think the scenarios are such long shots. I don't think there's any other way around it.
Yeah, agreed. I think that this has.
Well, we'll see. They've struggled to do the basic.
This has to be something that they come into the weekend saying. They need to come into those strategy meetings and say, no matter what, if Max is in front and we're second and third, Lando needs to be the guy that's in second so that you could buffer him. If you're in first and Lando's in second, even if Max is in third place at that point, I would even say for them to swap it there if it starts to get close. Or, Oscar would have to pull one of those slowing down enough to where Lando can get a DRS off of him to keep him, ahead of Max.
Yeah, I still think you got to switch them because you don't. The other thing, and this is a challenge, right? But the other thing is you don't really want Lando next to Max because again, he's not exactly an honest broker. You don't know what he's going to do, and if he tries to quote get his elbows out in an attempt to kind of force Lando to wreck or go wide or fall out, because what Max needs is Lando off the podium.
Yeah.
So if they're kind of neck and if they're near each other, I think you've got to. If, for example, if they're running Oscar first, Lando second, Max third, you've got to swap them and put Oscar in between the two so there's a buffer there. Because again, at that point, Oscar's done anyway, unless Lando pushes sixth or lower. So you're not really doing anything by keeping him in the front, and you want that protection.
So really, even in that scenario, it's like if you leave Lando there, and something happens to Lando, say he starts fighting with Max and Max spins him, and maybe he doesn't wreck, but he falls back. I mean, what's gonna be the news the next day? Oh, they favored Oscar by keeping him out front and not putting him in between, and then it hurt Lando because Lando got spun because of it. I mean, it's just this is going to be an interesting it's going to be interesting to see how they come into the week.
Yeah, and everything needs to be. So we talked about this last week, right? If there's a safety car, they have to have their shit together. If there's not, they really just need to cover Max up. He pits, you pit the next lap. Doesn't matter what strategy we're doing, we're not going to get some kind of offset.
Yeah.
And it's okay to finish behind him.
Yeah.
You just can't finish off the podium. So,
Exactly.
And really the way the pace has been in these three cars, no one else on pace should really be up there with them, getting in the way of that, even if it's a suboptimal strategy. So you cannot allow Max to get some kind of a advantage on pit stop or whatever, because what you don't want to do is have a situation where your optimal strategy says to pit in 5 laps, he somehow undercuts you, or maybe your optimal strategy says to pit now, you go ahead and we're going to pit first, wait for Max to pit, because last thing you need is some kind of safety car situation, you get out of position and Max is not out of position. The next thing you know, okay, now he is in first and we're in fifth, right? So that's where, because again, all you have to do is podium this thing. But again, if they were running in the same order they are this week, like last week, this week, where it was
Max wins the
1
championship.
second, and yes, except if it is Max 1, Oscar 2, Signs 3, Lando 4 this week, Oscar's got to pull the fuck over.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Let everyone through.
For sure.
Lando wins the championship. Like, I mean, there's no other way you do that. Like, you cannot let him take the checkered flag in second in that situation. He's got to move.
You got to no, because well, first of all, they couldn't just move. They move, and then it's a controversy because you would let Sainz and Lando through, but
You have to let Signs through too. No, you have to let Signs through also. It doesn't matter.
They would pit the car. They would pull Oscar out.
Well, it was the last lap they couldn't pit the car, so because he would cross the finish. It depends on where the start finish line is, but if he crosses, no, you got to just move the hell out of the way, man.
Yeah,
you can't. You can't. You got.
We ran out of gas. We ran.
No,
out
you
of
just
gas.
pull. I am dead serious. Pull the hell over, even if the yellow flag. It doesn't matter. Like, just get out of the. You have to let both the cars through. You have to go finish fourth and let Lando take third, and let Sainz take second. That's fine. That wins you the championship.
But would the FIA?
In fact, they probably should have done that this week. Like when they saw that. No, there's no. Yeah, there's nothing illegal with that.
I mean, if you're swapping your two drivers, yes,
you're allowed to do team orders. They're not swapping anything. They're not saying move over and let Sainz. They're saying you slow the hell down and let there's nothing that stops you from letting cars through. They're not. It would be illegal if they collaborated with Williams or something. Said, "Hey, over." No, they're just telling their own driver, "You got to move over and get third." And they absolutely need to do that this week. If Oscar's in front of Lando and Lando's in fourth, Oscar's got to move.
Yeah.
Unless if Lando's outside the top six, they're sixth or lower, that's different. Because then Oscar's going to win the championship. Then he should keep it if he's in first. But again, if it's 1, 2, 4, you got to move, man.
I guess we'll find out on Sunday.
I mean, you got to do the team orders. You can't allow Oscar to take the checkered flag in front of Lando if Lando's in fourth.
Yeah,
you just can't do it. Even if he's winning the race, you can't do it.
Yeah,
you gotta say if they're let's say it's running. Actually, no, if he's winning the race, it's fine because then Max can't win anything. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, if it's 1, 2, 4 or 1, 3, 4, you gotta move, buddy. You don't need that point, but Lando does.
No, for sure.
You gotta get out of the way. And I don't trust they're able to execute that, but that's what they get. Again, all that has to be gamed out, like you said. This should not be a real-time decision in the race. This should be, these are what we're gonna do. If you get into this situation, this is where you're letting them through.
Yeah.
If Max comes up behind you, this is where you're holding him up. Like he's got to be a number 2 driver. If Max is trying to whatever Max is doing, in fact, if Max goes for, you might have to back Oscar way the hell up and be like, get into his pit window, hold him up.
Yeah, I mean, whatever would be to help out.
Whatever works for. The thing is, he's too quick, so he's not gonna really do that. It's not gonna be a Checo situation from 2021 where Checo was so slow that Hamilton can come around to lap him. He hasn't been it yet. It's just it's not gonna be that. Which is when Checo held up Hamilton because Hamilton pit first came out. Checo was so slow that Hamilton caught him, and so when Max went for the overcut, he made up like 10 seconds right there because Checo was holding up Hamilton so much he was able to almost catch up to him. Oscar's not going to be slow enough to really do that kind of stuff. In fact, the way he's been driving, he's been faster than Lando recently. So
this is interesting. Morgan made this comment in the comment section. I just confirmed it. It says Piastri must give up his seat in Abu Dhabi to Award. Pato Award's gonna take FP1 this weekend.
Yep.
So that's interesting to me because that kind of shows. I mean, first of all, Pato Award taking FP1 in Mexico is something that we've seen the past couple of years that they do that it's something that brings the fans because he's Mexican, and you show out to the Mexican crowd, but you're doing it at the final race of the year. Are they maybe thinking that this is a situation of they need to get Pato Award more seat time, or what's it called, the super license points, because don't you get super license points for doing the FP1s in case of a situation of Oscar Piastri saying I'm out next year? Because I mean there was the whole situation of after the last race where Zach Brown went straight up to Oscar Piastri and gave him a big hug, and there was reporting about you know Mark Webber giving Zach Brown the stink eye and everything. That's an interesting development. I mean, if they're nervous that Oscar Piastri might leave McLaren next year because he feels like Lando's getting favored, which has been kind of out there in the ether that they're favoring the British driver because they're a British team, then that's interesting. Because Pato Award to McLaren would be kind of a cool situation. I mean, for me at least, I'm a Pato Award fan. So, what do you think about that?
I think I don't think there's anything. I don't think there's anything there. Oscar's long term locked up. So is Lando. This is. I'm pretty sure that required testing they have to give the seat up for. This is not like. I'm assuming this was determined a long time ago. I think they're trying to get. I think they are again. Award's a McLaren IndyCar driver, right? So I think they're just trying to get him his points on his license so that he can hopefully get, because these sessions count as part of their qualification for the actual for F1 for their super license. So I'm assuming that's what they're doing.
Is there any other FP1 replacements this week?
I don't know, but they pick when they do it, and I think they have to do it for a certain number of races.
Yeah, but that's the thing about it. Usually when they do it in like groups. So they'll do it at Monza, right? Every year we see at Monza, there's 3 or 4 drivers that are out there. They do it at Suzuka. Suzuka, there's usually a few drivers that are out there, and especially like in Suzuka, there's a lot of, there's a few Japanese drivers. In Mexico, there's usually 2 or 3 drivers that are out there that are rookie drivers that are coming in. Lindblad would go, or again, Pato Award would go out and stuff like that. So, I don't know. This just seems weird going to a championship fight in the final race of the year. You have arguably one of the drivers that is in for the championship is going to miss a practice session for an IndyCar driver.
Yeah, because he needs points. Like, I mean, he needs the super license points. I think that's simple. They want to get him into a car.
But why would he need super license points if they're not planning on putting him in a car?
Well, they don't need to put him in the McLaren.
He's a McLaren driver, thoe. Like,
yeah, but he can also go drive for Cadillac and stuff. Like this. This is not.
This is weird to me. This is really. This is something we're gonna have to keep an eye on. I think this is something we're gonna definitely have to keep an eye on, because I think that again, if that same scenario that you were talking about happens, if Oscar's in second, Max is in first, and Lando's in fourth, and they tell him to pull your ass over and let Lando get up into the podium to win the championship, you might not see that happen because he's just going to say, F you guys, or you're going to see him do it and then come back in and say, I'm sorry, but this is my last race with McLaren. I'm buying my way out of the contract. I'm figuring my way out of it.
I don't think so. I think no, that was a different team that they were trying to. McLaren was always going for. Remember the whole thing with Renault didn't at the time it was Renault, now it's Alpine, didn't do his contract correctly. They forgot to like do some paperwork, so he was technically free and all that stuff. I don't think Oscar's going anywhere. Look, the way Oscar will go somewhere if the car comes out next year, it's a piece of crap.
Yeah.
But right now, you don't give up a championship winning driver. They've been very even and fair, even though Lando's the local kid, and you know that the internal team, you can freaking tell, wants Lando to win. They've still been very fair to Oscar, including this week, because, you know, going to that race, they could have been, look, this championship's close, but Lando's the favorite. We just disqualified both cars in the last race. Oscar, you're the number 2 driver for the next 2 races. Like, anything supportive. And they could have pit Lando for the optimal strategy and left Oscar out, and they didn't do any of that, right? And they've been trying to keep it even. That's right, it was Palau. It was also Colton Herta was like rumored for a while, but he couldn't get the points. So they've been very fair to Oscar, and as long as he thinks they're going to continue to do that. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think unless they come out next year and like the car is not at the top, then you might start looking around saying maybe there's a championship winning car I can get into. But if he can win championships in the car, I don't.
I mean, imagine Oscar Piastri in that Aston Martin next year with the Honda engine and Adrian Newey now running the show.
Well, I'm like, that's what I'm saying. If it turns out that McLaren's like 5th, like they were 2 years ago, basically, it's hard to remember how quickly.
Yeah.
This generation of car started with Lando having to pit on every lap to top off fluids the first time they rolled this car out there.
Yeah.
At the beginning of this generation, they developed into the beast. But if it comes out next year and it's not at the top, and like you said, Austin Martin, really anyone, he can pretty much pick a team and they'll take him. So if he's looking like, okay, now I'm in the 4th best car, the 5th best car again, that's where McLaren was a few years ago.
Yeah.
And then he might start looking. But I don't think there's any kind of bigger picture here. They're required to do these alternate driver tests and give up sessions. That's why they always do it.
I get
So.
it. We'll see. Did we even talk about the Adrian Newey news? Did we talk about that?
I don't think so. He's been named the team principal at Aston Martin and not just the designer.
Team principal Adrian Newey. Man, who would have thought that would have happened? That to me came out of left field. The guy who says that he just wants to sit at his easel drawing pictures of cars and designing, boats for the what is it called cup? The something cup that they call it, where the racing sailboats that he designs too. I never thought he would take on this responsibility. Like that's pretty crazy.
I think he wanted the control.
You think that's what it was? I mean, he just always seemed like the guy that, like the tortured artist in the background that just wants to design the cars and doesn't want to do anything else. Now he's gonna be the team principal for the entire team. Like, that's crazy. I mean, granted, he's not doing like the Toto Wolff, right? Toto Wolff is like the CEO of Petronas, not Petronas, but of the whole team.
Whatever the hell it's called. Begins with an I.
I don't know. Ineos.
God. Ineos, that's it. Yes.
Yeah, where he's the CEO of the whole, company and everything like that. So he's involved with that. He's just basically going to be the race director, the team principal of the racing team. I don't think he's going to have to deal with all the other stuff, but I guess we'll see what happens. I think it's interesting. I think it's going to be interesting to see him on the pit wall, or in the pit box, doing the same things that the Christian Horners or the Toto Wolffs or the Stellas do, stuff like that. So it's a nice change. It's an interesting change to see how that Aston Martin's going to be. I got high hopes for that car next year too. Maybe not the drivers, but the car at least.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, again, we'll see what. I mean, next year is going to be brand new cars, so you never know who's going to. Maybe we'll see a Ferrari or Mercedes resurgence. They've kind of fell to the back burner in this generation. So we'll see. And no one saw McLaren being where they are now. So yeah, it'll be an interesting.
Fans.
Yeah, that's for sure. It has been, talking about Lewis Hamilton earlier, last McLaren World Drivers Champion. This could be the week. If they don't fuck it all up.
Now, if only our football teams could do the same thing.
Well, our football team did what they had to do. It was out of our hands. We got Michael Massey here, so. But,
good comparison. I liked it.
There's literally rules written on the website that say head-to-head matters, and they're just like, we're not going to look at that. Fine.
We're not going to care about head-to-head.
I need Toto to throw his headset at this guy, and
we're not going to compare 3 out of 4, similar opponents, the point differentials. We're not going to care about that. We're just going to give it to Notre Dame. Why? Because they got a bigger fan base.
I think they just decided they won't come off of it. It's ridiculous, but anyway.
Well, let's see if Notre Dame loses next week. Who do they play next week? Or this week, I guess you could say.
Who?
Notre Dame.
They don't play near as Miami. It's done.
It's championship week. That's right.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it's over. Yeah, it's over. I mean, at this point, who knows if them losing would even.
Yeah. That upsets me. I'm sorry. Well, at least we have basketball to look forward to, though.
Well, that team sucks too. But anyway, all right, let's do predictions.
All right, you go first.
All right, I am gonna go. I'm taking a risk here on this pick because I'm wondering if they're gonna go. Well, no, I don't know if I have Lando winning, Oscar second, Max third, and then I don't even know. You gotta tell me this counts as a surprise. I have Yuki DNFing in his last Red Bull race. I mean, out of the points, it's definitely not a surprise. But is DNFing? Does that count? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe crash skating to try and manipulate it for a.
Maybe.
But my thing is, I think Lando might not be aggressive at all. I might just slot into third and try to carry that home. And we've seen, actually, we talked about Lewis Hamilton winning the last championship in the McLaren. They went with that approach. He needed to finish fifth, and they targeted fifth instead of trying to win the race. And he was in control until rain came and they, the pit stops, they got out of sequence and he ended up almost blowing it and overtaking the last corner. And I mean, all they need to do is finish third. So, yeah, I don't know if they'll push for the win, but I got it. What about you?
I'm going to go Lando with the win. I'm going to go George P2 and Oscar P3. I'm gonna say that Max just doesn't have a good weekend. Not to say that he isn't the best driver in the world, but I just think that this track might favor the Mercedes power unit a little bit more. It's got
Lando did win this race last year, so
yeah. So I think that it is going to favor the Mercedes power unit a little bit more. Be able to turn up the power, turn down the aero a little bit. Make the cars a little bit more slick. And you're going to see like 1, 2, 3, 4 being like Lando, George, Oscar, Kimi, or something like that. So I'm going to go Lando, then George, and Oscar with Max somewhere in the top 5. That's not my surprise, but I'm gonna put him probably in that top 5 area, either 4th or 5th. Up there fighting to try to get up into the podium spots. And then my surprise is going to be. My surprise is gonna be Yuki. Nah, you already picked Yuki for something.
I put him for DNF.
Yeah, you picked Yuki but you picked him for something. I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go with Albon beating Sainz this week. Sainz has had a really good strong push towards the end of the year, but I'm gonna go Albon being ahead of Sainz and being in the top 10 this week. I think Albon's kind of due for a good race.
Albon's gonna have some pressure next year.
No, I agree.
Because Carlos is kicking his ass.
I agree.
So he's gonna have to step up. Yeah, we will see. Carly's of course got Max, Carlos, Kimi, and a double DNF. So, and then called us delusional. But anyway,
Of course.
Well, I mean, since McLaren is using Mercedes to manipulate the championship, if they double DNF, I think there's no choice but to tell Antonelli to just run Max into the wall, right? So, because they're cheating, allegedly.
Yeah.
We'll
see.
I don't think the McLarens are going to be upset. I mean, it's Lando. Oscar's done, and he knew that coming off the race, and that's why he was like, I don't even know. He was like, I'm speechless. I don't know what to say because he knew it was done. They knew this. He knew the stakes going into that race that he had to win it, and he did everything to win it, and the strategy screwed him. So that's why he was so dejected. Lando was fine. Because again, I mean, there's no way Oscar's going to be allowed to finish ahead of Lando if it matters.
No, I agree. Yeah.
No, they're going to have a lot of explaining to do. They just had to hit like everyone else in this race, and they would have 1-2'd it probably. So yes, they're going to have a lot of explaining to do. This is after they got themselves disqualified in the previous race.
I mean, think about it. If they would have all pitted at the same time and they would have ended up 1-2, if they could have swapped those positions at the very end of the race, Lando would have already had the championship.
Yeah, but they wouldn't have even had to swap them because Max would have been so far back.
Yeah.
So Max would have been eliminated if he finished behind Lando in that race. But keep in mind, this is after they got both disqualified the race before and got 0 points.
Exactly.
They are on a hell of a streak here. All I have to do is finish third.
All he has to do is finish third.
Yeah, and again, he really just has to finish. He really just has to finish fourth with Oscar in front of him because Oscar is going to have to move out of the way.
Just for sure.
Yep.
Go for the bronze, Lando.
I think that's why I think my pick is a little risky because I don't know that he's going to push to be in front. It doesn't need to be.
First of all, do not click on that last comment. And Morgan, language, sir. Morgan. Language, sir. Keep my comment section clean.
I mean, I do have the ability to ban him, but I'm not going to do it.
Keep our comment section clean, sir.
Anyway,
I got one more year of being able to tell him that. Actually, another few months of being able to tell him that. So.
Anyway. Yeah, so we'll see again. The race is it is Sunday, 8 a.m., so it's a little bit of an earlier one. And yeah, we will know probably around 9:30, 10 a.m. on Sunday what has transpired. It should be pretty, again, just finish third if you're McLaren. But yeah, we'll be back on Tuesday to discuss and hopefully celebrate a papaya championship.
There you go. Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Yep. All right. We'll see you all next week.
All right. Have a good night, guys.